After a retail stampede on Black Friday claims several lives and limbs, a serial killer is out for revenge on Thanksgiving 1 year later. This is the latest horror movie from Eli Roth, a director we haven't exactly been thankful for in the past. But who knows? Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hey, gobble gobble.
Mother effer. This is a horror movie podcast, and of course it is the time we did Thanksgiving. We didn't get a chance to do it last year because it was in theaters last year, and we couldn't go do it at that point. So by the time we could access it, it was already like too late to do it for the holiday.
We could have done it for Valentine's, or
wait, what? Are you suggesting we could have done it for Valentine's Day?
yeah, it could have been our Valentine's Day episode.
That would be a bold choice. Look, this is, I mean, Thanksgiving's is an American thing anyway. It's nothing to me. Mm-hmm. Although Black Friday has somehow penetrated the UK. The last like decade, Black Friday's been a thing here. It never used to be. It's been a very, which is weird because the whole point of Black Friday is it's the day after Thanksgiving, and there's no Thanksgiving here. But somehow the sales day has made its way over.
I mean, capitalism just reaches the world far and wide.
Pretty much.
The thing that's kind of funny to me is like I was trying to think like, is Black Friday like really a thing anymore? Because I feel like everyone just does so much shopping online that, I mean, I'm sure that people like still go out, but like, is it these like crazy stampede, kind of things where people are like lined up outside and ready to rush in?
Well, you're asking the wrong person, but I feel like I see new clips of that every year. And I mean, Black Friday is definitely a thing online. I mean, if anything, they start it early online. They'll be like, hey, Black Friday's this week, so we'll just start sale today.
It's so confusing because I've been getting notices from, I mean, appropriately enough, like some of the, like horror labels that I follow, but it's so weird because they'll send you an email and they'll be like, hey, our Black Friday sale's in 2 weeks, but you can pre-order the sale items now. So I'm like, all right, wait, so should I just get them now then? What's the difference between that and actually waiting?
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Tim, but anyway, this will all factor into the plot of the movie we're about to talk about, I promise. So yes, we're talking about Thanksgiving, directed by Eli Roth. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into the spoilers, and of course if you're enjoying the show, do hit the like button on YouTube. Helps us out a bunch if you do, and you can get bonus content for supporting us over at Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show.
I know, that's what I'm thankful for, is their patrons.
Oh yes, this whole we should all say what we're thankful for nonsense, yes. Traditionally, of course, we have not been particularly hot on Eli Roth movies, I think it's fair to say.
That's a pretty mild way of putting it, but yeah.
We weren't particularly hot on Green Inferno. We were very negative, in fact.
Legitimately might be the worst movie we've done on the podcast. I
no, that's
put
not
money
true.
On that.
No,
I don't know.
That's not true. Tim, do you not remember sitting through Subspecies 5? Come on now.
Oh, but little baby Radu is so cute.
No. We have done, I mean, don't get me wrong, Green Inferno's bad, but we have done worse than that. In fact, we have done several worse than that. Mm-hmm. We never actually did the original Cabin Fever, weirdly, but we did do the weird remake, which I don't think was him. Was it?
No. So that one is very weird because he might have like produced it or something, but yeah, he didn't direct it, but is someone else directed it, but they used the exact same script. Like they just used his he probably has a writing credit, so I'm pretty sure they just used his like shooting script, which is, I don't know if that's like some weird like movie experiment or something, but yeah, what a strange movie.
Yeah, very strange. I'm realizing actually that we've not really done any of these other movies. We've somehow avoided everything since Green Inferno.
So wait, do we ever do the Hostels? No.
Nope, we've never done the Hostels. And
the thing is, he doesn't have like a huge like library, because it's just like Cabin Fever, Hostel 2, and then he was kind of quiet for a while, and then like he came back with like, was Green Inferno like his when he came back on?
I mean, I don't know, but he also has Knock Knock. He did the Death Wish remake, apparently, which is news to me. And I completely forgot he did Borderlands, which obviously came out recently. Not a horror movie, but worth mentioning.
I think he did that like a kids movie or something in between there. Clock on the Wall or something.
Yeah, House with a Clock in its Walls, yeah.
What a crazy sounding house. Clock on the Wall?
Yeah, for whatever reason, we've just avoided doing the Hostels. We avoided doing the original Cabin Fever and Knock Knock. I guess we just didn't want to. Thanksgiving apparently is getting a pass just purely because, one, people said it wasn't that bad, and two, it's seasonal. So, and we're suckers for a seasonal slasher movie. So here we are.
I mean, just out of curiosity, I guess, because we didn't do them on the show. But have you seen most of those movies, or?
I haven't seen Knock Knock. I haven't seen the second Hostel. I saw the first Hostel, and I saw Cabin Fever, both a long time ago. I could not tell you much about what happens in them, but I don't remember liking them that much.
When Cabin Fever first came out, there was a lot of buzz about it, and I remember actually like being pretty positive on it. And then I think, I don't know, it's been a while, but I do feel like I revisited it at some point within the last 5 to 10 years and was like, not super feeling this anymore. And then I saw the Hostels. I really don't remember much about the second one, but yeah, the first one I remember like I don't know, being a little bit more excited for it, and then not being as crazy about it. I probably thought it was like okay at the time, but then obviously very negative on Green Inferno. I did watch like Knock Knock out of curiosity before, and I mean, I hope we don't have to do it on the show, but oof, that is quite bad.
The fact that you just said that means it's inevitable. You know what it is? You know, if it's going to torture us, eventually we have to do it. Like at some point, there's going to be a reason to it, and we're going to have to.
I mean, if we're going to do anything, I think like the Hostels would probably have a bit more to say, but who knows? Which ones will be forced to?
They'll all get done eventually. I don't know why you're resisting this, Tim. Like, you know the thoroughness of which the show tries to be. So I don't know. I went in with. Did I have expectations? I don't even know if I did. I just kind of went in with a sort of blank stare in my face and hope for the best.
I guess I had like medium expectations because since it was Eli Roth, it was very low. But like you said, like it had gotten some buzz, and I'd known people personally that said it was pretty good. So I was approaching with caution, but I was still somewhat excited.
Well, obviously, Tim, you'd be excited because Patrick Dempsey, star of Scream 3, the best Scream movie, making his return to horror here with this now. Although apparently he's coming back for Scream 7. I think I read that at some point, but that's another discussion for another day. So
who was the cop in the last Scream movie, Scream 6?
I can't remember his name. Dermot Mulroney? Is that his name?
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. Because for a second I thought that was the same guy, and I was like, no way that they have like him playing like the cop in like both like these recent horror movies.
No, well, no. Patrick Dempsey was in Scream 3 though, so he'll be his character again when he comes back. Maybe that's why I was thinking of him as being in Scream. I didn't even think about that. Okay. Most people know him from like Grey's Anatomy. I think that's what he's famous for.
Yeah, he's a Doctor Show guy, right?
Yeah, but I just think, he's in the bad Scream movie. That's why I know he's famous from. I don't know him from anything else. I mean, casting wise, Gina Gershon's in this in a small role, so I recognized her, but that was pretty much it. I didn't really notice anyone else. That it's because it's mostly young actors playing teenagers, none of whom I know from anything. So, all right, well, let's just answer the simple question first then. Tim, how did you feel about Thanksgiving?
So again, like I said, my expectations were hampered, but I was looking forward to it because of some of the good things I had heard, and I'm probably a little bit more forgiving when it comes to like holiday theme slashers, because it's like, as long as it's getting, you in the mood, even if it's not the best thing in the world, if basically if it gives you a reason to watch some type of horror thing around the season, I'll give it a little bit of a pass. And I gotta say, I didn't think this was, half bad. I don't think it's great or amazing, but I had a fun enough time with it. I think there's definitely some flaws. It probably could have been tightened up a little bit. Maybe I'm just getting old, but I didn't really find myself caring too much about the young characters, who are the main characters, really. What worked for me in the movie was I thought I had some pretty decent fun kills. They usually tended to be kind of stupid and over the top, but I usually enjoy that in a slasher movie. The gore wasn't half bad. I thought they had like a pretty cool look for the slasher. Again, it's everything is working on holiday themed level. So yeah, again, I'm not like over the moon, but I had a fun enough time, which is, again, very surprising to say, considering like I've pretty much just written Eli Roth out as like I'm just really not interested in this stuff anymore at this point. But I don't know if this would go as far as to be like a redeeming thing for him, especially since I think I was gonna say the Borderlands movies like came out after this. I don't know if it was made before it though.
It was definitely made first, because it was on the shelf for like 2 years or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna go as far, but to say like, hey, I'm a Roth devotee now. But I mean, I think they said they're doing a second Thanksgiving movie, which I would be down for.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's kind of where I land on it. I think there's some stuff in the opening, like 10 minutes, like sort of, we'll call it the extended prologue, that I thought was, I wasn't sure if it was meant to be intentionally funny or just kind of bad, right, but enjoyable because it was bad and funny. But I was like, if the energy of this keeps up, I might be having a hoot here for the rest of this. And get into normal slasher mode afterwards, but I would definitely say the structure of slasher movie this is way more 1990s Scream style than it is 80s slasher, because
yes,
you have the whodunit element of a Scream, and you also have the element of like, the cops are involved in talking about who the killer might be and trying to investigate between the killings, and everyone's on alert because they know there's a killer around, as opposed to a killer's picking people off one by one over the course of one night or so, and then it's not until towards the end where the last few characters realize, oh shit, there's a killer around. Now, I definitely prefer that over this style. And that's some of the stuff that I was the least into, was when it was, the main girl's talking to the sheriff and we're talking about who the killer might be. I'm like, I do not give a shit. I really do not care. But I will say, like, the kills are all right. Some of them are kind of funny. I did feel a little bit of a CG kind of feel to the actual gore, if I'm honest. So I wasn't always as in love with that. As it could have been, but the kills are solid enough. It does have good theming. It's just the plot is kind of whatever, and it definitely could have been tightened up a little bit. A couple of weird edits as well, actually, especially towards the end. I felt were awkward transitions between scenes, but young characters I just kind of felt indifferent to. They felt a little bit of a blank slate. They weren't really that endearing, which would have been nice if they were. And there's some silly characters on the periphery that I actually found actively annoying. Namely, the cool older guy who sells booze and guns to people. I found him and his, like, henchmen, like, to be just kind of weird and over the top, and not in a way that was particularly fun. It felt like sort of, like, old school Eli Roth, like, seeping through.
The worst is when he's trying to be funny.
Yes. Like, whenever he's trying to be funny, it was not working for me, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying with like the Scream vibes. Like, I was a little surprised because I was expecting like, just more classic, like, kind of 80s throwback slasher. But instead, it does hinge on this like kind of mystery aspect of who the killer is, which I'm not against. Like, that's fine, but yeah, I think the problem is just like the characters just weren't engaging enough for me. Like, if you compare it to Scream, like those very memorable, interesting characters with actors who had a lot of charisma. I guess that sounds insulting. I don't think like the actors were all bad, but I just wasn't really feeling much. I'll be honest, like you put a gun to my head, I don't think I could tell you most of their names. I remember Scuba because it's like, oh, okay, that's
the only one nickname, I remember. I remember Scuba because it's a weird name, but that was it.
Yeah, I want to say the main girl was Jessica, but after that, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I couldn't have told you that.
The only reason I remember is because at one point, I think it's the killer is like yelling Jessica, and it reminded me of Jessica Jones on the I think the purple man is like yelling for her.
No, the only other one that I caught was Julia, just because it was like Julia, but it was like it was like someone was saying it with an accent, but it's actually spelled with a Y, at least according to IMDb anyway.
Okay.
So that was that. But yeah, honestly, the teenagers are pretty interchangeable. At least they are at a certain point. It did feel like they were kind of setting some of them up to be a bit more memorable for a while, and then it kind of took a bit of a pivot, and it didn't really matter too much. But it definitely felt more like I don't mind there being like not knowing exactly who the killer is, especially since I think the opening of this does actually do a decent job of being like, okay, there's like there's like half a dozen suspects that kind of make sense, and we don't know which one is actually turned into a killer. That's all fine and well. But I'm really not like the whole like paranoia of who the killer is and spending like time between the first several kills having time to debate it, because it's over the course of several days, so it's like, oh, a body was found today and we're all talking about it and we're all whatever, right? It was fine in Scream, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about Scream, but like any movie that's tried to do it since Scream, including the sequels to Scream, I've been kind of like I don't really, I'm not whatever, like it's fine, because there was no answer to who the killer is when we got towards the end. It was going to make me go and be like, have the rug pulled out from under me and be shocked or surprised. And what they actually do with it was also super predictable and something I kind of guessed in the opening scene. Not like the ending of the movie, but I guess something that actually is part of the ending reveal in the very opening scene of the movie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I definitely didn't know it right away, but there was a certain point where I felt it was very obvious they were trying to misdirect you to who it is, and I'm like, well, obviously it's not going to be that guy. That's too easy. So it's probably this person. And then I was right. They do kind of an annoying thing where like I mean, maybe if I go back and watch it, maybe there are more clues, but I feel like there wasn't. But when you find out what the killer's motive is, it's kind of like, well, none of us would have been able to know that. So it's like we could have accurately like guessed or whatever. To be fair, Tim, that's the thing I predicted at the start of the movie. Okay, well, we'll see.
Like it's the one thing I was like, okay, they did something really on the nose, and anyway, we can't talk about that till spoilers.
It might have been something I missed then.
Or I'm just a genius. That's possible. That's not discounting that.
Is it?
It's very possible.
I do think for an extra episode, we should each take IQ tests and see who's smarter.
I don't know, Tim. I don't think we should have that embarrassment fall on one of us.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll feel guilty.
Yeah, I would also feel guilty.
Not as guilty as I'd feel.
Well. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as far as anything else goes, yeah, I mean, it's not like super long or anything, but I did feel the pacing a little bit. There's a point where I thought it was the finale of the movie, and it kind of like pivoted to an extra sort of location and like an extra bit that felt a bit strange to me. Just because I felt like the whole movie was building up to a certain location, so we're building up to this thing the killer's setting up, and then it kind of went past that into some other stuff.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we're at the climax of the movie, then it jumps like right ahead to a much less exciting climax, which is kind of weird. Or like, at least like location wise and stuff, like it wasn't as interesting.
Yeah, I think we're dead set on spoilers now, so we'll say spoiler warning, everyone, for Thanksgiving. You've been warned. It did come out a year ago though, so if you're
what are you waiting for?
If you're cared about it, you probably have seen it. But if not, this is your warning to jump off the ride, as it were. So, yes. So the thing I got right at the start, because the movie opens with the introduction of two families, right? And it's Thanksgiving night, and this is a year before the rest of the movie. So the opening, like 15 minutes or whatever it is like a year ago. And it's this Thanksgiving night, and we're introduced to two families. One of whom, the main girl, Jessica, she's in one family, and her dad owns the local big like store, right? Yes, you think Target or something like that. And he's kind of rich. She's in a rich family. She's got a new stepmom that she clearly doesn't like very much. And they're talking about how, we're going to make so much money this year because now Black Friday starts at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, on Thanksgiving itself. And then the other family we meet, and the sheriff, played by Patrick Dempsey, is going over to join them for Thanksgiving dinner, is Gina Gershon and her husband. And he works at this store, and he gets a call saying he has to go in and work because someone else is out and they need to be open on Thanksgiving night. So they're mad, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. You're showing two sides of this capitalist nightmare that is Black Friday, and then it progresses to all the stuff that's happening at the store, which we'll get to. But the thing that caught me was that when Dempsey showed up, one of the first things that gets mentioned is that he's not married anymore or something like that. And Gina Gershon says, "Oh, you can bake. Oh, you won't be single for very much longer." And I immediately went, "You two are having an affair." I immediately clocked it. Right? I was not surprised one bit when that was revealed much later in the movie. Which, we're in spoilers. The sheriff's the killer, right? I'm just get out of the way just now. He's the killer, right? That's something that'll come up later.
If you knew they had an affair, did that instantly make you think he was the killer, or
not necessarily? It was okay because. Like I said, they kind of give you like at least half a dozen characters who conceivably could be the killer, with two or three of them really being heavily hinted at. Because basically what happens is that when we get to the Black Friday stuff at the store, and there's this stampede of a crowd trying to get in, is that some people get trampled to death. Like one of the security guards gets trampled at the door. Gina Gershon gets like knocked down, and then someone like rams their shopping cart so hard into her head that it kills her, right? And
her hair gets the hair gets like caught on the wheel and it like scalps her a little bit.
So to be honest, this riot scene at the store when they all rush the store and they're just doing all this stuff, I genuinely was like, is this meant to be funny or is it unintentionally funny? And I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Like, I do want to say it is supposed to be, or at least I felt like they were going for, oh my god, this is so over the top. Like, isn't this kind of so crazy it's funny or whatever? But yeah, maybe a little hard to tell.
Yeah, because it feels like a black comedy. It's because I would like to think that as much as, yes, there's real footage of people like running into stores, and for some reason in this particular scene, they all really care about the waffle irons. So that's the item that they're really going for. I don't know what's going on there.
I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like, the things people are most interested in are like the big high ticket items, like, new TVs or like, something like that. Like, I don't know if people are really going to give that much shit about a waffle iron.
Hey, the town of Plymouth, they love the waffles.
Plymouth.
Was it Plymouth?
Plymouth, yeah.
Plymouth, whatever. Who cares?
But yeah, it did feel like this was like taking like a bit too long to get, to the stampede. Like, I feel like there's so much back and forth between like, the funny security guard yelling with the people in the crowd stuff. And
you see, Tim, this is where it's taking something from another movie, and I kind of respect it for doing it. Is that it's doing the Final Destination. It's making a point of showing you all the characters who are going to pop up later in the story, like the rival kids at the other school, because later on we're going to kill them. But more importantly, it's giving you all the people who either are going to die or get injured in this incident, or people who have lost someone in this incident, and therefore they're the ones who are all the suspects. So, because the last one, of course, we get is when the main girl's boyfriend, was his name Bobby, I want to say?
Yeah.
He tries to run to protect the guard who's still kind of alive, and he gets stepped on so hard in his wrist that his arm or his wrist completely breaks backwards, which is particularly tough for him because we kind of find out that he's kind of like a minor local celebrity because he's really good at baseball, like pitching. So this is like his career might be over because of this. So he's got motivation, right? You've got Gina Gershon dying, so her husband's an obvious candidate to be the culprit. And then you've got both the boyfriend whose career's ended, and you've also got this other guy who clearly has the hots for the main girl who might be the killer too. Like, they're all the obvious red herrings that they present us with. But I would like to think, though, in the chaos of all this, as much as I believe people are animals and they're running around and people may get trampled, I would like to think at the point where there's a dead body with a big pool of blood coming out of it in the middle of the floor, that at least some people would maybe stop and kind of pause and take note of, holy shit, there's a dead body sitting here.
For sure, yeah.
Right? The characters in this scene, other than the people who know the person that's died, no one cares. They're all just still fighting and clawing their way. And I wasn't even sure, is this just a riot now? Are you going to even pay for any of this? Because I feel like all the employees have run away scared.
Yeah, because like people are so like animalistic, but it's funny to be like, okay, are they like trampling someone but also like still going to the like the register and like, you know, taking out their credit card and stuff. The one thing that really got me too was like the one guy that like the doors, like the glass breaks open on the doors, and then like one guy's pushed into this shard of glass and he just has like this big gaping like a neck wound that's like bleeding as he's like trying to shop and stuff.
Oh yeah. So it's after the glass doors break down, one of the guys who comes in catches his neck on a bit of broken glass that's still sort of sticking out from the edge of the frame. Yeah, and he's got like a neck wound the whole time.
I feel like it has to be comedic then, because it's like the fact that he's like still like trying to get like a waffle iron while this is like happening, like that's at least that like instance has to be very intentional.
Yeah, like because I want to give it the benefit down and say this is a black comedy doing satire on, you know, the capitalist nightmare that this is, right? You know, like George Romero doing Dawn of the Dead, right? Nowhere near as good, obviously, but like he's trying to say something with this scene,
right?
But I don't know if he's going for this is to be played straight or it's meant to have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek vibe to it. I'm actually really not genuinely sure, because there's nothing else in the rest of the movie that I felt like was, you know, if this is intentionally like black comedy, I don't know if the rest of the movie had much of that.
I think I would kind of disagree with that, because I think the deaths themselves are always usually like pretty funny. Like there's usually some, you know,
the gore, but I guess that's the problem though, is that all the main characters though are dead serious though the entire time.
For sure, yeah.
Right, they're all bland and boring and whatever, but yeah. So it makes a point of showing you these people getting hurt or dying. It makes a point of showing you the people who either care about those people. So obviously the husband like breaks down when he sees her. The sheriff also gets really upset because the scene ends with him shooting his gun into the air to, like, you know, disperse everyone and take back the city, and that's when the title comes up. But it also shows like that rival school kid who apparently like one of the main kids had a fight with. Like he's the one who actually yells with the megaphone or the store's open and causes the stampede. So it's like, okay, here's someone to blame who's maybe deserving. And then our entire main group of characters are to blame as well, because they actually get in before everyone else because her dad owns the store, so they sneak in the employee's entrance, and it's cool because everyone knows it's the boss's daughter, so we'll let them in. So because the people on the outside see them inside, like early, getting the pick of whatever they want, the crowd gets pissed. And to make matters worse, a couple of the guys actually start standing up on the counters and like waving their new phones at them and like goading them. So they are dicks, but like So it gives you, the scene gives you everything. It gives you characters to blame for the situation that the killer would want to go after. It gives you characters who get hurt. It gives you multiple potential red herrings of who would want to get revenge. It is kind of funny though. I didn't know get into this movie that the entire plot, like in the burning, it's the bullies set the kid on fire, and they don't necessarily mean to burn him alive, but like it goes too far and he dies, right? That's your year ago backstory to why the killer comes back and starts killing everyone. I did not go into this movie knowing that it was going to be a crazy Black Friday stampede that was going to be the inciting incident for why the killer is coming back for revenge the following year. That's a little bit funny, so I'll give them that in terms of like premise.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. Actually, I like this opening scene. I think maybe I like going through all the characters, but probably could have, again, maybe tightened a little bit of it up. I didn't think that one, like, security guard or whatever that was yelling in the crowd was, like, very funny. And again, it seems like, Eli Roth probably thinks, he was being really funny there.
Yeah, and I mean, I know he's someone that they're going to kill later, so I guess there's like, we have to make him stick out in the opening scene so we remember him. But that's about it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that it's like, okay, the main people that the killer is going after are like, this main group of friends, and then also just like one or two other random people that were there, like, the security guard and like this one lady that was like prominently there. Yeah,
she was the front of the line, yelling and swearing, wanting her waffle iron. This we find out later she works at the local diner, but she ends up in the first victim later on. Yeah, it's a decent opening section because it establishes a bunch of stuff in that very Final Destination way. It made me think of like, getting to know all these characters on the highway at the start of FD2 kind of thing, and be like, okay, these characters are all going to pop up when we get back to things a year later. If anything, I feel like the movie kind of over-explains it a little bit, because they do this thing where before the killer goes after his victims, it'll show you like him looking at like the photograph of them or something, and it's like, I guess we know you're about to go after. You could have just went after them, and like, I don't know. I feel like you did such a good job of like making these characters memorable enough in that opening section. You didn't have to dumb it down later and say, hey, remember this character from earlier? Yeah, we got it. It's fine. Bit of trust.
The thing I wasn't like crazy about is like the killer having their own Instagram account.
Feels like something you could probably track if it was. I mean, well, for a start, are Instagram banning this account when he puts a photo of a severed head on his?
You would think so. Like it's weird that like there's a very known killer out there that's just posting stuff, and people are able to just like give it likes or DM him or something, and the cops are just like, I don't know, like what can you do?
It's not too bad with the sort of like the hip like Zoomer style references or whatever, but there is a line that bugged me. So early on, we were interested in the main group. First of all, this group are really into like the high school rivalry thing, because they all start chatting for the school team whilst they're on their own in their car, and I'm like, is this an American teenager thing where they're actually into the school spirit shit, that they're actually like, on their own time? It's not even just when they're at school having to make a show of it. They're on their own chanting for the school team. I guess two of them are jocks, so I guess they're more invested than most would be, but that was strange to me.
I could see annoying people doing this.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Because we basically have 6 people right in the main group. We have, and I feel bad for the girls in the group, because I feel like I remember the guys and then the girls are just their girlfriends, except for the main girl, who, because it's kind of flipped in her case. But there's the asshole guy who's like a jock, the white jock, and he's got a girlfriend. I think his girlfriend is Yulia. No, it's the other one. It's the other one, because Yulia is the one that's with the other jock. Because Scuba is the black jock, and he's with Yulia. That's right. Okay.
I remember there's a Kathleen, but I think that's the stepmom.
The stepmom's Kathleen, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, there's 6 characters. So when we talk about the main group, we're talking about, at least 5 of these characters, because Bobby's kind of not with the group for a lot of the movie after this. He's just kind of here for this first chunk. But anyway, the Zoomer reference I was getting to, though, Tim, is they're describing the fact that on the way to the house to pick up the main girl, they got into this fight with this rival guy, right, at the other school, who's, you know, Lonnie, I think his name was. And they talk about how she was filming it, or she wasn't filming it, and the boyfriend was like, hey, you should have been filming that. I could have been a social media hit. It could have went viral, me kicking the shit out of this rival kid. First of all, I don't think the internet at large cares about your local, like, high school rivalry, right? The rest of the world does not care one bit. But the thing that bothered me was the girlfriend says, no, you're lucky I wasn't filming that. It was like Waffle House level cringe. And I'm like, that is such a specific reference to that one video of the woman getting mad and throwing stuff around in the Waffle House. I don't know. It bugged me how specific that reference was.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah. Luckily, there wasn't really much more like that afterwards, though. Everything afterwards was just kind of like, you know. I mean, yeah, they're using phones a lot, and like we said, the killer's posting stuff on Instagram, but other than that, it's not particularly egregious.
Again, though, it's they just are really bland, and
oh yeah,
I don't even want to say like I don't even want to say unlikable, because it's like, I don't know. I feel like you'd have to stand out more for it to be like unlikable or something. But yeah, they're just kind of there.
No, I agree. They're not offensively bad. They're just not interesting. They just don't stick out in any way, shape, or form. Arguably, the jock's a little bit, you know, cliched in how aggressive he is, just to sort of have that dynamic going. But other than that, there's really nothing particularly interesting about them. It's like, because, you know, in theory, for this to work, like, caring about the main girl and like, oh, is her ex-boyfriend Bobby, who hurt his hand, now he's back in town, could he be the killer? Or is the new boyfriend, the one that Chloe already had the hots for, who's like the brainy guy, is he the killer? Like, for that to work, I have to, on some level, care about Jessica.
Yeah.
And that's why, on some level, it worked in Scream, because Sydney was a better developed character. And I guess part of that was that she had this tragic backstory, so these killings were bringing up traumatic things from her past and whatnot. Whereas Jessica's whole thing is just that, much like Sydney, her mum's dead, but it's not because a killer got her. It's just she died somehow a few years before the movie started. And she has a little necklace where she says "Good night, Mum" as she goes to bed. That felt a bit cliche to me, actually, when she kissed her necklace and went "Good night, Mum," and I'm like, yeah, all right, okay. But yeah.
Did they ever explain? I'm assuming that her boyfriend Bobby is in college, because like they say he goes away and then like comes back.
See, I would have thought that, but they said, so there's a year time jump, right, for the rest of the movie, and then they say in that part that there's still 1 year left before she goes to college. So that would mean if he's already in college when she's got 2 years of school left, you're getting kind of sketchy at that point on the age difference there a little bit. But,
yeah, that is a little.
I think I took it more as because he was like a star athlete or whatever, that he was going away to some private school or something like that.
Oh, okay, maybe he like at a boarding school or something.
Yeah, he just went away
that could
for
be
school.
fair. Yeah.
I assume so. I mean, that's the thing, is that they all look like 24, so it's hard to it's hard to gauge. But yeah, that's the best I could do for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's like some things like that that I was like, well, I don't really care about this, but also I kind of wish they would explain it.
Yeah, and all the teases they do of like, oh, one's suspicious or more suspicious than the other. I mean, I don't know, like the whole thing where, oh, we're going to check the security footage of the night everything happened, which there was a whole thing they explain as well, actually, that the security footage was erased mysteriously, but then it turns out the stepmother did it because she thought, oh, that'll get us into a lawsuit if they see what happened here, so we'll delete it all. But there's backups at the house, which she then gets, and then there's like suspicious footage of her current boyfriend, the smart one, being buddy with one of the security guards. And for some reason, and I really didn't understand why, they thought this was super incriminating, like, oh, this means he might be the killer. And all I could think was, I don't know, I'm not like, yeah,
it means nothing.
It means nothing. And it turns out to just be like a completely inconsequential thing that he knows the security guard because this the guy gets some Adderall or something. Like it was completely separate from anything. And I don't know why. I guess the reason why she thought it was suspicious is because he never told her about it, but it also feels like he never told her about it because it wasn't really anything he thought he had to tell her about it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I don't know. It was a bit weird.
And like, even if it was just like someone he knew like vaguely from school or the neighborhood, like it wouldn't be that weird to see someone and be like, oh, hey man, what's up? Like, again, like it doesn't really mean like, oh my god, they were best friends and now he's on a crazy revenge spree.
Actually, here's something they set up. So after the time jump, right? So a year later, it's not quite Thanksgiving yet. It's maybe a week before or something like that. I don't know exactly how many days it is. But they introduce the fact that there's a new deputy in town. And they do a whole song and dance where the sheriff goes to the diner and the woman from the Black Friday thing is the waitress there. And he's like, oh, get me 2 coffees. My new deputy's coming in. And she's like, oh, yeah, he was in yesterday. Real talker, that one. And they really make a big deal from not only her, but there's like a detective later as well who kind of indicates that he's kind of just kind of rude and standoffish or whatever. So they do a whole thing where this deputy's here and he's the new guy and he's not very friendly with people. And I thought, okay, he's too obvious to be the killer, I think, but clearly we're setting him up so that he's got a big role to play later on. And maybe I missed something here, but he's just like a non-factor for the rest. Like he's around in a few scenes when there's police around, but that's it. Like he's never, like he gets an introduction like he's going to be like a prominent main character, and then he's just not important. He's practically an extra for the rest of the movie. It's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There are people that are set up that like you think would at least be, like body count fodder, but like.
Yeah, the other one was Gina Gerson's husband, because we get a bit of him when the time jump first happens. You see on this news report that he's talking to the press and he's like, "Oh, they shouldn't," because there's a whole kerfuffle because they're going to open the store on like Thursday night again for Black Friday, and he's like, "Oh, they shouldn't be opening the store. They should be ashamed of what they did. They got my wife killed." And he obviously sounds angry. And he's too obvious to be the killer, but he's obviously a red herring. Whatever, that's fine. But obviously, I was thinking, oh, he's going to have a big role to play, or maybe we won't see him a lot. But when he does come back into the story at some point as a red herring or as a potential killer, it'll be a big deal when he shows back up. And he has like just the smallest bit in like a parade where he protests, and that's it. Like it's another thing that just doesn't. I don't know if there's deleted scenes or what, but it feels like there's stuff that's set up with characters where they just fade into the background and they just aren't a thing from that point on.
Yeah, definitely feels like a movie that would have like some deleted scenes. Like the other one I thought, or I was expecting more, is like there's like some scenes with the jock guy, and he gets like the nerdy guy to write his paper, and then he screws him by just copying something the teacher wrote on her blog, and then it seemed like, okay, maybe is this gonna set up something where like we're gonna see this character get it later on and stuff, and then it's like nothing, and it's like I don't know if we really needed like that scene or whatever.
There's no payoff to the jock being mad at him for like tricking him, making him look like an idiot. And when we see that character again, because he's kind of like the little henchman for the guy who sells guns and stuff, but it's just an extended joke of like he's got like a red like rope that he lets people into the house with and stuff. But, like, there's nothing to him.
It's very strange. Like I don't know if like Eli Roth was just very taken with this actor or whatever, because like first it seems like he's the sidekick for like the brainy boyfriend like early on, and then it seems like okay, now he has this thing where he is like the whipping boy of the jock, and then later on he's also like the like little sidekick to the party guy or whatever. And it's like I don't know, it's like one of those cartoon characters that just like has like a job everywhere like in the city or something. It kind of felt odd. And then that's another character that doesn't really go anywhere, is that like party guy. I mean, other than I guess selling them the guns and stuff that they have later, like nothing really ends up happening with him, right?
You say guns. He only gives one gun to one person, and then it's used like, well, it's not even really used. It's failed to be used in the very next scene, and then it's forgotten about for the rest of the movie.
That's right. Yeah.
I think the implication is that he doesn't even have it after that point. So it kind of made the whole trip to get a gun again feel like a lot of stuff. Like now that I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that kind of goes nowhere or gets resolved so quickly and anticlimactically. It's not a big deal, and it feels kind of weird. So it's probably to a credit that the kills are fun enough that I'm not mad at the movie still, but it's definitely a wonky movie in terms of structure, in terms of things paying off, and like it feels like some of these things you could have just cut out because you don't pay them off anyway. But maybe it'd feel like the movie would just be rushing through kills at that point if you did that.
Yeah, like it's not like I find a lot of these characters like funny or anything particularly, but I do at least appreciate them for maybe standing out or being a bit goofier or something, versus the boring main characters. Yeah,
they're more memorable than the main group for sure. That's fair. All right, do we just go through some of the kills then? Because I feel
yeah,
that's the main thing we're here for the most part. Well, I mean, we'll mention once the plot really gets going in a bit, but most of the early stuff where they're like, oh, like there's a killer around, should we be looking for clues, or he's tagged us in these Instagram posts, like all of that is just kind of whatever.
Yeah. I will say, I guess before we get into the kills, I do like the look of the killer. Basically, it makes sense. It's Thanksgiving. It's in Plymouth. Like, so the killer is basically a pilgrim. This guy, John Carver.
Hold on. You said that in a way there. It makes me ask a question. Is this town actually related to Thanksgiving in some way? Is this not just a random town?
I mean, I could be wrong, because this is like something that you would learn about in like like 4th or 5th grade, when you're like, hey, like what is Thanksgiving all about? But I want to say Plymouth, it's like where the pilgrims landed when they like set sea over here.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm right about that.
That was lost on me. I just thought this was a random ass town, a small town, and that was it. Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, it's like a notable New England town.
Wait, so the killer's wearing a John Carver mask. Is John Carver a real person from history?
It didn't sound familiar to me. So yeah, I mean,
the thought I had was, they've called him John Carver because you carve a turkey. But
right, yeah.
If there's a real person called John Carver that's actually a historical figure, then, well, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, there very well could be. Like, I'm not, a history expert, so maybe. But as far as I know, it's not at least someone that's like, synonymous with the holiday or whatever. But that being said, though, like, I like the look. It has like a good enough name. Again, we're all being very like on the nose with all like the thematic holiday stuff, but that's like kind of what you want in a holiday slasher. Like, if you're watching a Christmas slasher, you want the crazy Santa.
The look of him was fine. Kills were solid enough. It's really just all the whodunit and like the way they decide to build the plot that I could have done with streamlining quite a bit. Like, just
for sure,
make it simpler. I'd set it all in one day. If I was saying I could change something, I would say just set it all in. Like, maybe after the time jump, start it the night before Thanksgiving, have a little bit of setup, and then just have it all be on Thanksgiving. But less like police like escorts and shit like that we have to then explain how the police get taken out or ignore what's happening or whatever. On the subject, actually, there is definitely some little things in this that are sort of taken from famous horror movies. There's a whole bit early on where Jessica's sitting in school and she looks out the window it's not school, sorry, it's a diner, but same difference. She looks out the window and like the killer's is standing there watching with the mask, like Michael Myers, and then when she turns back to look out again, he's gone. I'm like, yep, that's the scene from Halloween where Laurie's in school and she looks out and sees Michael standing there.
Yeah.
There's a few things like that.
Yeah, it didn't bother me that much because it didn't feel like it was constantly doing that and like trying to be very like winky, like, hey, remember this. I mean, it certainly is like a ripoff, but it didn't bother me as much as like maybe some other movies might do that kind of thing.
No, I think there's also something at the very end that's like a trope from a different type of movie. I wouldn't associate it with slasher movies, but they do kind of like she has a nightmare at the end and wakes up.
Oh, the last like whatever 30-ish seconds or whatever was awful. Like totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it is literally just 30, maybe a minute tops, but yeah, it's just there's almost nothing compared to the rest of the runtime. But it's more like a scene out of I don't know, like, and I like this movie, but it's more like a scene at the end of a Phantasm movie than it is a scene at the end of a slasher movie. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, so yeah, the kills. So the first one is the lady from the diner. And, you know, I didn't really think too much of the stalking around stuff, you know, like, because, you know, she sees him, but it's the actual moments of violence that are pretty decent, because before we even get to the kill is a really fun bit where he dunks her head into some cold water, or it doesn't even have to be that cold, but just some room temperature water maybe, but then sticks her face after that up against the inside of the big freezer door, so her face sticks to. I'm like, okay, that's quite inventive, because it's like simple things that any of us who have ever like got our tongue stuck on like an ice lolly or something have understood the science here. And it's like, okay, so her cheeks actually kind of ripping off as she's trying to, because you get the idea, oh, this is a big industrial freezer, so it's a lot more powerful, it's super cold in there. It makes enough sense. So
and then I like the kind of little punchline to it too, where she gets into the next room, and then I think he also like slices her fingers off or something too, or like cuts her hand, because I think like her hand's like very bloody.
I think it's just a cut in the palm. I don't think he chops anything off.
Okay. But then I thought that was kind of funny in the next scene. Like she, you know, like gets herself alone in the room, and then she, you know, takes out her phone to call for help, but it's like her finger's too bloody to unlock the screen, and then it doesn't recognize her face because her face is all like messed up from the freezer door. So that gave me a little bit of a chuckle.
Yeah. They establish she tries to call for help, but she can't even operate her phone because the blood's just smeared all over it at this point. So yeah, that's good fun. And then the actual death itself is that she thinks the coast is clear and goes out to try and get to her car, but of course the killer's already in her car. So her actual demise is the killer hitting her with the car into a dumpster. And the force of hitting the dumpster so hard, apparently, and I question the physics of this a little bit, even though I like it. I like it as a visual, but I'm not sure it would actually happen. Is that basically the lid to the dumpster coming down like severs the top half of her body, so you get just like the bottom half with like the intestines sort of hanging out, sort of dangling there like against the car. And I'm like, I'm not convinced that it would actually be able to do that, but it's a fun death. Fun, yeah. It looks good, so I'm not going to complain.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So yeah, fun enough death. You know, what I don't really care about is the killer putting like half of her body up in display in front of the store, so everyone starts talking about it and whatever. I don't know, whatever. I don't really care.
Yeah. Again, it seems kind of weird that it's like, okay, so you're giving me the motive that this cop is angry that you know, his you know, the woman he loved was killed in this riot and all this stuff, and now he's getting revenge on the people like that. That's all fine. That makes sense. But I don't know, like I never feel like I got a sense of like why this like killer is being so theatrical. Like, you know, because again, like I feel like
he's almost making his job harder, because he's going to have all the cops hunting for him now.
Right? Yeah. Like in Scream again, and you know, I'm sorry for always comparing it, but it really does feel so like it's so much trying to capture that. But it makes more sense in that movie, because it's like, oh, these are all like, you know, pop culture obsessed teens that are like, feel like they're like living out a horror movie and stuff. So it makes sense that, you know, they're becoming these horror villains and like, you know, taunting the victims and all that stuff. But yeah, here it's just kind of like, oh, like why is he going like through all this trouble?
Yeah. Also, the killer, I will say this about the killer, is that he kind of lacked some menace at points. And while I'm glad he didn't kill the cat after the next victim, him feeding the cat and petting the cat on his way out the door really did make it feel like, okay, you're just killing specifically the people you think you need revenge on, and you're not going to kill anyone else. And it just kind of felt like, yeah, but now you're not that scary because you're not like unhinged.
That's true, yeah.
Like, obviously, I mean, you have to be somewhat crazy to kill a bunch of people, but you're not like, I don't know, like, I don't know, it felt like you've got a specific list and you won't go outside that list. It seems like, anyway.
Yeah, I guess the one exception would be, unless this was a character that had some involvement, I didn't know it, but he just like decapitates a guy in the parade.
No, they set this up when they were looking at the security camera footage and Jessica was identifying people. They pointed this guy out and said, he usually does the parade, he's the mascot.
Oh, okay.
He was in the store riot and they set it up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So they did. Yeah, they set it all up. The second death is the security guard from the store that ran away and didn't try to like stop the horde of people. So he's trying to like sneak out of town. He's getting ready to leave when the killer comes into his apartment. I guess there's like a slightly amusing bit where his cat's in the kitchen and he's like, "Hey, cat, like where is he? Where is he?" And the cat sort of looks over to the side. So he's like, "Oh, is he over there? Is he over there?" And I don't think the cat's trying to communicate that. I think the cat's just looking to the side. The death here though is that the killer wraps like a cord around his neck and kind of like goes like behind him. So he's got his arms crisscrossed and he sort of like pulls at the cord. It basically decapitates him. Like that's the short version of it. But it's a very specific way where he sort of does it from behind.
And then before that, he gets him in the stomach with like an electric turkey carving knife thing.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a mixer, but yeah, electric knife actually makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could have been something else, but that's what I assumed it was.
No, you're probably right. I think that makes more sense. But yeah. Yeah, I remember what the build-up was. I just remembered how it ended. Yeah. But yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so like this one, it didn't stand out as much as the last one, but I thought it was still like relatively fun.
Yeah, the adaptation was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the little capper where, yeah, he's about to leave and then he sees the cat and he's like, "All right, finally, I'll give you some food." Like, I mean, yeah, it's not doing you any favors, I guess, with making your villain like menacing, but. I was like, it made me laugh like a little bit. Like
it made me laugh, but here's the thing: if Art the Clown did this, I would think it was hilarious, and I would be like, sure. "Oh, that's funny. The Art won't kill the cat, but he will kill anyone else." Mm-hmm. But with this character, it kind of felt like, I don't know, especially since there's a couple of moments where he'll like wave when he's in the costume, and it just kind of felt like, oh, you're just a normal person putting on an act. Like you're not Michael Myers. You've not become the embodiment of pure evil. You're just a person who's putting on a show.
That's fair, yeah.
You know, which I guess is true in Scream as well. But in Scream, it's I don't know. I guess just Ghostface had a bit more going for him than this character did.
It does feel a bit more menacing than here.
Yeah. Maybe it's because it's. I don't know. Maybe. Despite the fact that the kills in this are way more gory, I think the kills in Scream, especially the opening kill, feels more visceral in a weird way.
Well, there's a thing where, like, if you go so over the top, it can be entertaining, but it makes it a less, like, you know, the more over the top it is, the less maybe, I don't know, scary or, like, you know, wincing it's gonna make you.
It doesn't feel real anymore, so it feels a bit more cartoony. Yeah,
which can still be fun. Like, you know, I don't have anything against that, but
it can be fun. Yeah,
but you're venturing more in like comedic territory than horror, I guess, at that point.
Yeah. Is the next deaths? Is it the two other students from the other school? Because, you know, we get reminded that this rival student exists. So
right,
we cut to like apparently he's like running the gym. I guess he's like the team captain, but he's like barking out orders in the gym. He's like, "Hey, do you know, no pain, no gain. Do this, do that." And his girlfriend, the blonde, who I think we also saw with him at the opening, although I don't really remember her, kind of like is at the door and kind of like waves him over, like, "Hey, come here, sexy times," or whatever. So he makes an excuse to leave, and he follows her to like the empty sort of gymnasium, which is kind of like sort of sectioned off. And there's a trampoline, and I think the implication is she uses this trampoline as part of her cheerleading or whatever. And she basically says, "Sit down here, and she basically gives him a jumping strip show where she like takes off her underwear under her skirt as she's jumping up and down. But as she's doing this, the killer just sneaks up behind him and gives him the Exorcist twist, for lack of a better term. Turns his head, snaps his neck all the way around 180 degrees. So he's sitting there with his head the other way around. That was like, I liked it in theory more than what it looked like. I did really like how he killed her though, because basically how he kills her is he just sticks the knife up from under the trampoline and she lands on it with her foot, which makes obviously like hurts like hell. And then she kind of like grabs her foot and she falls onto her back onto the trampoline. And basically every time she falls and bounces up and comes back down, he just keeps sticking the knife up at a different place and she just keeps landing on it. This was like comedy gold as far as I was concerned.
Oh, yeah. It's a great setup for a kill, and like you just feel so trapped because like you're on a trampoline, like where are you gonna go? So I guess one thing that we didn't really mention is that, you know, this is kind of based on something that came out a while ago, which was they had like a fake trailer for this that Eli Roth did.
For Grindhouse, yeah.
So like you know, if people hadn't seen that, you know, basically Grindhouse is two movies from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, and then in theaters they played them together, and then kind of in between them they had other directors come in and do like fake movie trailers. I remember Rob Zombie had one, and then Edgar Wright did one, which was pretty funny. Did you ever see any of these? Or
Machete's the other one that got turned into a movie, obviously.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Funnily enough, I saw the Machete trailer because I think that we did get that in some form. All the other ones, though, I never saw because you only got them when it was a double feature, and they weren't released as a double feature in the UK. So,
okay, yeah.
I never saw any of the other fake trailers, so I never saw the Thanksgiving trailer this was kind of based on. I assume, because it was so long ago, I assume if there was any teenagers in that trailer, there's no way it's the same teenagers in this, because...
Oh, yeah, I'm assuming. It's not like the trailer outlines the whole movie or anything. It's more just like, you know, they're not meant to be like, oh, this is going to be like a real movie someday. I think it was just a thing they did as a laugh, and then like, you know, years later, like, you know, maybe we should actually do that into a movie and flesh it out and stuff. But I specifically remember like the big scene of the Thanksgiving trailer was this trampoline scene. Like, obviously not the exact same scene, but I do remember like, like her jumping up and doing a split, and then you see the knife coming up, and I remember having a visceral reaction, like, ooh.
Well, I'm glad I didn't see it coming then, because it was a surprise when this happened. So there's a whole thing running throughout the movie about how like Jessica thinks they shouldn't have the store opening because it's just kind of ignoring what happened last year, and the dad's conflicted about it, and the stepmom clearly wants the store to be open. She seems like a bit of a gold digger, and then he ultimately decides later in the movie to not open the store. But although by that point it's because like more people have died and like they're kind of being targeted specifically. So because there might there's not another kill, but like two of the friends, so the white jock and his girlfriend, they get kidnapped by the killer, and we don't really see what happens to them. He just kind of jumps out at them and it cuts to black, and you don't really know what went on. But it goes into kind of that typical scene in the middle of one of these movies where the main girl's going to get chased by the killer in the empty high school. So there's a lot of her running away. I guess the highlight of this scene is probably her hiding in like a classroom that's full of like mannequin heads with wigs on, which was a really weird room to me, because like this is something I'd expect to be in a college for like hairstyle like courses or something like that. I can't imagine what course in a high school has a use for all these wigs, but
yeah, there was. I'm assuming this is still high school, but there was at one point I was trying to think of like, wait, is this like movie in college? No,
because earlier on the sheriff specifically said to Jessica, think of it this way, it's only one more year till college, so they are definitely 100% in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just, this is like, and it's not like this was like, oh, this is a storage room for like the theater club or something, right? No, this was a workshop where people are working on these wigs and doing hairstyles or something, whatever it is, I don't know. But I was like, this is a weird class for a high school, but okay. Sure, I won't argue.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess if they have like stuff like wood shop, that it could make sense to have some type of like, I don't know, like beauty shop or like something. But my high school didn't have that.
No, mine certainly didn't. So, but regardless, so she hides, and so her head's kind of sitting there next to the mannequin head. So she's actually got her head sticking up above the table, but it blends in with all the other heads. So that's kind of like
a nice visual.
It's a visual. And I thought the scene ended really weird though, because she sprays him in the face, runs away, and she kind of yells for help, and it kind of just cuts to the police outside with police tape, and I thought that moment was telling me, oh, they've not heard her, and like we don't know if she's still in danger in there. But then the camera sort of pulled out and then cut to her sitting there, and I'm like, oh, she did get out. Oh, okay. That the edit felt weird to me. The edit did not give the impression that, I mean, even if you said to me, oh, they wanted you to not be sure and then reveal that she'd already got out, it still feels clunky to me the way they did it. So it didn't quite fit for me. At this point, the old boyfriend and new boyfriend are accusing each other, and there's all sorts of things. The next big kill is Yulia. Her dad wants to just take her away to Florida, which is quite smart. But unfortunately, when they're packing, the killer shows up and kills her. Well, he doesn't actually kill her until like the other two characters get there. I was not expecting Scuba to be like the second lead for a while, because he kind of hangs around with Jessica, and he goes and gets a gun with her and whatnot. But when they get the Skype call and his girlfriend gets attacked on the Skype call, they rush over there. And that's the other thing the killer's doing as well that was kind of throwing me off, is that, and this feeds in again to him not killing anyone that he doesn't actually want revenge on, is that he's using tranq darts for anyone that he doesn't want to kill. So Yulia's dad gets tranq darted to get knocked out. The cop that was guarding her house gets tranked. And I'm like, I don't know, there's something really unintimidating about a killer who's just tranking people because they're not on his list. He's got a specific list, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it would be perfectly fine to like, have a killer that, okay, these are the people he's going after, but if someone gets in his way, then
that'd be fine. Yeah,
that's them. It's not like people are gonna be upset, but like, all right, well, why did he kill this person? They were innocent. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get why he tranks them sometimes, because he wants to take them to this big dinner thing he's setting up later.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But like these other people, I'm like, it feels toothless that he's not just killing these people as well, because they're in the way. Why not?
Very strange.
But yeah, I mean, I did like her death though, because when they get there and they have a bit of a standoff with him, he basically turns on like because the house is being remodeled, so there's like tools and stuff around. He turns on like a buzzsaw, like one of the ones that you get in the table. And just kind of throws her onto it, and her fingers all get like sawn off, and then she kind of lands on it, and her stomach's getting like sawed.
That's right. Yeah.
It's all pretty gnarly, and then when they finally sort of pull her away from it, like her intestines are just hanging out, and she is very, very dead. There's very little chance. I think the one thing that's weird about this though is that he kind of tranks everyone else later on to take them to this like Thanksgiving dinner that he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird how like the selection he's made, because like, why is this girl not part of the final dinner plan as well?
I'll be honest. I feel like I got a lot of these like secondary characters mixed up, because I'm trying to think of like who was the girl that was in the fridge that he was like
using his like wine, basically.
Wine.
Yeah, he was like putting a corkscrew in her neck and like putting the blood into a glass. That I believe was the girl on the trampoline.
Okay, I feel like I got her mixed up with the other girlfriend then.
Yeah, because I did have the thought, like, how is she still alive 2 days later with no medical attention? She got stabbed several times.
Yeah,
not that she's up and running around or anything like that. She's pretty weak, but still, it's been 2 days and she had like 7 stab wounds.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about it that much when I watched the movie, but it is kind of weird. Like, yeah, like what's the difference between like this person and that person that all right, this person is like a guest at the dinner, and then this one is like food for the dinner or whatever. Like,
yeah, like some of them make some sense. Like I get why. I mean, the ones that make sense is actually the main girl's parents, like her dad and the stepmom, because they're the ones who actually opened the store and wanted to do this to everyone and yada yada yada. Like they make sense to be the guests of honor and like this is who he ultimately wants revenge on. But the kids are so random because he just kills Yulia here, but her boyfriend Scuba he has at the dinner later on, and maybe it's just like a by chance thing because he was still around, so he just kept him alive for that because it's more people for his big show, but. It just kind of feels like because at this point in the movie he's already like kidnapped two of the others, like the white jock and his girlfriend. They've already been kidnapped. Admittedly, at this point we don't know they're still alive. We think they might be dead, but given that this movie's been doing big gory deaths for everyone that we see killed on camera, it felt weird that they would not kill them that way if we were going to see them. Actually, I'm trying to remember like who survives because like. Once you leave, so the next part of the movie is that basically they want to lure out the killer by going through with their normal Thanksgiving Day parade, and they're like on the lookout for anyone in this Carver mask, and they're looking around the police. There's a lot of tense moments when they're up in the float and they're waving to the crowd, and like they're looking to see if anyone's coming for them, and the police are roaming around on the outside of the streets looking for the bad guy. I actually like the payoff to this, which is that the killer was just smart enough to wear a different disguise because it turns out he's wearing like a big skull mask or something. I want to say. I
thought it was like a clown or
oh, no, you're right.
Like
I think it was a clown. I think you're right. But it was something generic, and it made me laugh because I was like, because he just turns around and decapitates the mascot who was also at the riot at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually genius. The killer just wore a different outfit. And the police never saw him coming.
Yeah, and then also they set it up by they're basically trying to use them as bait to lure the killer out, and then like their plan is after the parade they're gonna be inside like the warehouse or whatever, I guess, where the floats go, and they feel like that's gonna entice the killer to sneak up on them there. So I like that. It just totally like subverts that by like halfway through the parade. It's like, oh no, the killer's attacking now. And it all makes sense. I guess now looking back on it, knowing that the killer was the sheriff, because obviously he would know like where the trap is going to be in the best time.
Yeah, he knows what the plan is, and he knows whatever. Because basically at the end of this scene, like they all try and run to a cop car to get away, but then the killer tranks the policeman and leaves them in the road and tranks everyone in the back seat and just drives them off to his lair. Before we get to the actual dinner scene, though, there's this sort of extended sequence where he's like basically putting like seasoning on the stepmom. He's got her like on a table and he's like lathering her up. He's putting salt and pepper on her. He's got like veg surrounding her. And she wakes up and we get an extended sequence where she's sneaking around the house and trying to get out and try to get free. Ultimately, though, he throws a pitchfork at her and drags her back inside. It's an okay sequence. Like I've definitely seen better suspenseful. Like we're trying to sneak away from the killer scenes. Like I think we've seen better examples of it before, but it's fine for what it is.
I actually like the scene. I mean, I'm not disagreeing. Like there's definitely been way better examples of this, but it worked for me. Again. Thanksgiving movie, like of course you have to basically cook someone like a turkey. I'm not gonna lie, like some of those sometimes it was looking like kind of good, the way he was preparing her. I was like, oh, okay. I can see why some people might eat people.
Tim wants a roasted MILF for this year's Thanksgiving feast.
Roasted MILF does sound like a to be original that we'll cover someday. But no, I thought it was like a fun enough scene of her sneak around, and that's when she gets upstairs and she finds the
girl in the fridge.
And then I feel so bad for her when she's like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'll come back to you, but like I gotta close the door. Like he's gonna come up here soon. And then I actually like the the mom was like, or the stepmom, whatever. She was pretty capable in this scene. Like she was holding off her own, and she actually does get fairly close to escaping. Like she actually gets out of the house and then gets dragged back in at the last second. And then of course the payoff, like cooking her in the oven and stuff. I thought the whole thing was pretty fun.
Yeah, you actually see her get put into the oven and like the heat's turning on. She's screaming and begging for her life. And he opens the door and she's like, "Oh, please, please let me out." And you think maybe he's changing his mind, but he just puts in the little like thermometer thing to see when she's ready, and then closes the door again. So he then presents her, and he actually sort of poses her like a chicken, where her legs are kind of like up in like sort of chicken position. But yeah, like the dad's at the head of the table, the main girl, Scuba, the two kids that he kidnapped earlier. This was the thing I was trying to remember. If like is Scuba or not Scuba? Sorry, the other jock, the white jock, definitely dies here, right? He dies in this scene. He gets his brain bashed in with the meat hammer. But his girlfriend, I think she survives, right, as well. His Scuba definitely survives, and the dad definitely survives.
Yeah,
I think she survives too. I don't think she dies in this scene.
I think she does.
Does she? How does she die?
I don't know. I mean, she might make it to the end.
Well, because this is the thing, is that once Jessica like gets free and runs away, we then follow the killer and her to like a new location, and these characters are just kind of left. I mean, we don't even see them again. We just like assume. Well, no, we do see them briefly at the very end. They sort of come from the hospital, but I think her other female friend survives.
I'm guessing they're just the ones that don't die are just pretty much left at the house, and they must just rescue them later on after the killer's taken care of.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that I was saying that is weird, though, is that the movie just leaves them behind and forgets about them.
Oh, yeah. No, this feels like this should be the end. Like, this is where, everything is taking place.
This feels like the climax. This feels like what the killer's been building up to. He's got this big thing planned. He actually like, carves out a bit of meat from the... And he says that he's going to make the dad eat, like, a slice of the meat of, like, his wife.
I forget. He had a specific reason why it was her that he cooked. Like, he had, like, some pun that came with it. Like, because... I forget why, but there was a reason for that. And then it actually does make me laugh that... So this is taking place at the John Carver house, I guess. And it's kind of like, no one thought to check there. I mean, there's, like, a killer that's, like, dressing up like John Carver. And is very, like, thematic in all the things he does. And it's like, you didn't maybe go to the house and just take a quick look there, check the basement?
Well, yeah, because they do a whole thing here where they track because the killer starts live streaming this, and they track the live stream to a house. So there's a whole sequence where they get to a house, but it's actually just like a phone pointed at a monitor of the footage. So they've not actually got the location, and it's just a big, huge red herring. And more, I was just feeling like every scene with the police in this movie is just making me annoyed. Like I feel like it's all just. I didn't care. It's these attempts to build tension of like, will they get to him in time? And I'm like, no, of course they're not going to. It's going to be the main characters on their own, having to deal with them and whatever. I think the other thing that would surprise me at this point as well is that by the time you get to this final showdown, where it's just Jessica and the killer and whatnot, is that both her like current boyfriend and her ex-boyfriend have been missing in the movie for like a good half hour. Like, it felt like they were very prominent characters, and now they're just kind of like not around for this chunk. Until, of course, obviously it comes up again in a minute, but like it was a while without them.
And I feel like the movie wants you to think that one of them might be the killer, which is fine. I mean, it's predictable, but...
Yeah, I don't even think might be. I think they want you to think that one of them is definitely the killer. Like, it's a case of which one it is. It's just A or B. That's your choices.
Yeah. But like right away, I figured it probably wasn't going to be any one of them because it's too obvious. But then also it's like, well, yeah, if you do want us to think that, like, give us more reason. Like, have them be more main characters instead of like, it feels like they start off that way and then they just kind of disappear, like you said.
Yeah. There's a really weird cut here because so the killer chases Jessica out the house and she climbs over a fence and almost gets stuck. And there's this weird cut where she kind of stumbles into like where the warehouse is, where the floats were going to go, and the sheriff's lying there like having been hit in the head. And I just was like, this is weird. Like, why is he here? Like, what? Like, it felt like just a weird jump to be like, wait, was this house that close to this other location that we already knew about? But anyway, like she looks into like where the warehouse is, and she sees her ex-boyfriend Bobby take off the mask, and she's like, oh my god, it's him. And she tells that to the sheriff, who shows up because he wakes up from his nap basically. And we don't see what happens. We hear some shots. He says he tried to shoot at him, he thinks he hit him, but that's kind of where the movie slows down again, and the authorities are there, they're cleaning things up, they're talking about evidence and whatnot. And she basically notices that the sheriff's like shoes have got like some of these like flowers on them, or like some whatever from like the chase, and she deduces, oh, the sheriff's the killer. And the movie, of course, has to like do the thing where it does all these little flashbacks to things that he said earlier, that like, oh, he was using her as the killer for help, so he'd know where people are. He was intentionally misleading her and making her suspect her friends and her boyfriends and whatnot. And he just, Patrick Dempsey just sort of like starts hamming it up, and he's like, oh, if only I'd caught you 1 second sooner. Oh, yeah. And he basically confesses to everything, and she reveals that she's been recording it with the phone that was sitting on the table for evidence. So she streamed the entire confession.
And I think when she shows her phone, I think you see it's getting a bunch of like thumbs down, like, which is just like it's like so stupid. Like, people are just watching this live confession and then being like, "Boo! I don't like that. You're mean." Which I think that's something they did too when he live streamed the boyfriend getting his head smashed in. I think like people were giving it thumbs up, which is like very weird.
Yeah, that's weird. The thumbs down do make sense here, because it's not like they're so much thumbs downing her for streaming it. They're more just thumbs downing him for being a killer.
No, I get it, but it just seems like that is such a like childish like thing to do, like in the gravity of the situation. You know what I mean? Like,
actually, on that subject, I was also feeling this as well. Like, see when they go to the house party to buy the gun from the party guy and whatnot, all I could think was, this town just does not feel like it's all scared of a killer, right? I feel like at this point, the town should all be terrified to leave their houses, but instead, everyone's just acting as if nothing's going on. That also kind of hurt the mood for me a little bit in the back half of the movie.
Also, a lot of this stuff feels weirdly like it should be set up for a big set piece or a kill that just doesn't come to fruition. Like, I mean, again, sorry, but like comparing it to Scream, like, that was also another.
So lazy, Tim. Think of a new comparison.
But I mean, it's just so like apt. but I mean, obviously, like they have like the big party scene there where it's like, people are like, oh, like, screw it, we're still gonna have a party and stuff, and then they're building up this, I think they call it like the McCarty party or whatever, and it's kind of like crazy that, like, okay, yeah, there's this big party thing.
Yeah, like you said, they build it up, like they have the character talking about it early and try to sell tickets, and then it gets brought up a second time. So by the time they actually go there, it's the third time we've heard about this party. So it wasn't like they just went to a random party that was all just, happened to be going on. Yeah, very strange.
And then also, like, I don't know, I feel like, again, you're setting up like this guy that, he loves like guns and stuff. Like it feels like, I don't know, would have been a good kill to have him face off against the killer, and of course he probably has like all these weapons and stuff, but then
still die.
Weirdly feels like a lot of set up for just missed opportunities here, or also, stuff just goes nowhere.
You've reminded me there was an extended bit here before our main characters arrive at the house party. There's like a bunch of like 14-year-olds who try to get in, and
so funny,
and it seems like he's going to let them in as long as they pay, but he ends up getting mad and tells them to piss off because they don't know who Black Sabbath is.
Oh man, I mean, I was hooting and hollering. It's so funny, and then I was like, yeah, I agree, man. They don't know who Sabbath is. Like, young kids, right?
What's so funny is that, because obviously I know who Black Sabbath is and I'm familiar with Ozzy Osbourne, but when because the story he's telling when they go, who's Black Sabbath, he's like, oh, people thought Black Sabbath was over, man, when they fired Ozzy, but then they hired this other guy and he named someone, and I'm like, I have never heard of that second singer in my life. I don't know, I could not have named you this guy that he's talking about at all.
I think it's James Dio, who and I'm not even like a rock or metal guy or like whatever, but like I think the only reason why I know about him is because I believe like Tenacious D like have a song about him. Otherwise I probably could have never told you who that was.
Anyway, so the final showdown, to go back to that, is you know, we know it's the sheriff. The sheriff starts chasing her around with an axe or whatever. You know, it all, Bobby shows back up. We know he's innocent now, because one of the things he confessed to when he was explaining how he did everything was that he drugged Bobby and put a mask on him to frame him, but he got up and hit him in the head, and that's why he was unconscious when she found him. So he explained that a little bit, but yeah, basically they just try and run away from the killer. I think he maybe fights him and tackles him at one point. But it ends up like one of the big inflatables, the big turkey, starts to inflate, and ultimately the big climax here is that she sets off the gas in the balloon to cause an explosion. But you get this visual of the killer walking out in front of this giant turkey with an axe in his hand, so you get kind of one last Thanksgiving thing to look at before the big boom comes. And then that's basically the end of the movie. You know, the friends show up when all the police and the ambulances are outside and talking about what happened and whatnot, and they're like, oh hey, we finally got over this. But there's one interesting little bit, which admittedly is just sequel bait, but they sort of point out that, oh hey, everything in there is incinerated. There'll be nowhere to tell if like, you know, he died, but no one could have survived that. And when they hear that, Jessica looks over all the firefighters who are walking out, and they're all wearing masks because they're firefighters. But it's this idea of like, oh, any one of them could be the killer sneaking out. Like, any one of them could be him. And now she's going to have to like live in fear. That was fine, I thought. That was fine. Yeah. You know, but it cuts ahead. First of all, her current boyfriend shows up, and now because she knows he's not the killer, like all is forgiven, and she hugs him. The ex-boyfriend says he's still a dick, but hey, he's not a killer, so cool. And that's basically that's the love triangle dealt with. Like the most, it's like a love triangle that never even got into second gear, and just, you know.
I mean, again, it could have been perfectly fine if they were more characters throughout. Like if these characters were more present throughout the movie, but they just fall off for so long that it just feels so unimportant.
Yeah, especially the current boyfriend, like, because this is literally him just showing up again in the last little bit. And the final little scene of the movie is her waking up middle of the night next to him, so they're clearly living together now, and she thinks she saw something in the closet. She goes to check on it, and he's like, are you okay? And there's basically a jump scare where the killer, like, you know, grabs her from the closet, but then she wakes up and looks over at the closet, and, you know, it's, you know, it's just that kind of moment. It's the jump scare. She's living in fear from the killer coming back. It does kind of leave it open for the sequel, where I guess the killer will just want to like go after the exact same group of people that survived, because unless he's like more unhinged now because everyone knows he's a killer, so he's going to be like extra violent about it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of unforgivable, I feel like, to have this kind of scene at the end. I feel like we've gotten past this. I haven't seen it for a while in movies, and then just the last minute really shitty jump scare, especially the dream sequence shitty jump scares. Just I was very upset to see it.
They just have to give us the like a crappy trope right before the end. Like they could have made it to the end without doing it. Because slasher movies typically don't need, like, slasher movies tend to avoid two things that supernatural horror movies always seem to have. They seem to avoid the research scene, which, to be fair, this one does avoid that. There's no research scene because there's typically no need for one. And they also seem to tend to avoid the nightmare thing. They don't necessarily have to. Like, you can have a scene where a character is like having a nightmare about getting killed, because it maybe leads into like them being scared about the killer or whatever, but typically you don't need it, and most slasher movies avoid it, and that's good. But this one just had to slip it in. There's a fake out dream jump scare right at the very end.
It's so frustrating, especially because like it's fine if you want to have like a last minute like something scary or whatever, but like wouldn't it just be so much more like creepy or memorable, instead of just having like a bullshit jump scare, just to like, you know, have her just looking at like, you know, the closet door and just like, you know, see this look on her face, like just not feeling safe and wondering like what is out there.
I mean, I would have done the closet door just because it felt like such a bullshit like location to have her be scared of. Like the closet, really.
Yeah.
Like they this is not some spooky like monster under the bed. Like, what are we talking about?
That's true.
I feel like just a scene like it's kind of, honestly they should have just ended it on the bit where she's looking at all the firefighters. Just have her looking around, looking terrified. Cut back to her face. Cut to black. Thanksgiving. Roll credits. You know.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do it, like skip ahead in time and have it happen later, where she's like going home and she's looking down the street at night time and she thinks she might see someone, and it's like, there's no one there, but like she's looking over her shoulder now forever because she thinks the killer's still out there. Like, there you go. Just a quiet, creepy moment. That would work.
Yeah, no, I feel like that would linger much more than this kind of thing that's just like, leaves a bad taste in your mouth right when the movie ends.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, there you go. That's Thanksgiving. Pretty much. It's honestly, like, to sum up, it's fairly watchable. It makes me think of like a C tier or B tier slasher movie from like it's kind of a mix of 80s and 90s, because I would say that the whole holiday theme, the Thanksgiving killer, the mask and all that feels very 80s to me, but the structure of like it being over several days, the police being involved, the whodunit and red herrings is very 90s because it feels a lot more like Scream. It's kind of a mesh of those things. Kills are pretty decent and fun. Maybe a little CG assisted for my liking at times, but mostly a good time. But characters could have been better. Some things just are set up and don't seem to go anywhere, and yeah, just some weird awkward edit choices to transition certain moments that left me feeling confused. Like when she stumbled onto the sheriff being knocked out when he wasn't even, like, just like, well, where are we now? What's going on? Like, what location is she ran to from the killer's place? I don't know. Just like I guess the big thing there is that I had no sense of time. Like, how long was she running?
Sure, yeah.
Especially since we know the killer's the sheriff. Like, so he went to get his car and took Bobby out to this location, and then she stumbled onto it. It's very weird. The sense of time passing's kind of absent, but
yeah, it's kind of frustrating because I did like the movie. I thought it was pretty fun, but there's just like little things here and there that could have been tweaked that would have really, you know, put it over the edge. Like, again, just tighten it up a little bit, just have, you know, much more interesting, engaging characters, and then just try not to focus too much on, like you're saying, like all the cop stuff that just isn't really that interesting or whatever, and then maybe like a few things here and there, like you're getting at that could have been explained better or whatever. But
I think what they needed to do, at least in part, to make the main character more compelling, is I think she needed to feel more directly responsible for what happened. I know once or twice she says, "Oh, I shouldn't have let my friends all go in early because that kind of incited this kind of riot that happened," but I never got this sense that she was feeling tortured because she felt like she caused it, right? I think if she'd felt more directly responsible and guilty, it might have made her more invested in terms of like everything that was happening. Instead, though, it kind of felt like she was always at an arm's length from it. Like, yeah, she's kind of guilty about that, but it's not really like a big central part of her character or whatever. It's mostly just being scared that someone's coming after them, and that's kind of it. Maybe if like, on some level you felt like she thought she deserved what the killer was bringing her, and she could have an arc because by the end of the movie she is forgiving herself because she doesn't deserve this or something. Like, just something, anything, like, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree, and like I don't know, I feel like, obviously they're shitty in the beginning, but I don't know, I still feel like you can't really like blame them too much. Like, I'm still gonna put more blame on the crazy horde of people that are rushing the door and trampling people, because like it already seemed like they were about to like riot anyway. Like Even if the kids weren't there, it feels like if they, you know, didn't open the store soon enough that they're gonna go crazy. And I feel like it's like really close to opening too. Like I want to say that they say that just like 10 minutes from opening or something. It's like at that point, why not just open the store? Like if people are that like incensed,
because those are the rules, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, very strange.
And like another thing too, like I feel like you could have done is, yeah, it did seem like such a big thing. Like, oh, the boyfriend, like the star athlete, and his arm gets broken, and then yeah, he distances himself, and then you think like his storyline is going to be he's going to come back and like he can't play sports anymore, so now he's all like hateful and resentful. But he actually comes back and he's like, oh yeah, the doctors say that like, you know, I might be back to like full speed like soon if I keep you know, like doing therapy and stuff. So actually doesn't seem like, you know, that bad. It's like, oh,
it seems like he lost about a year of his career, which admittedly it's not a good time for it when he's just getting out of high school.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pivotal moment, but still, like, it does feel like there's not as many consequences for what happened to him as that it seemed like there should have been.
Yeah, but like if you want him to be that red herring for like, oh, he might be the killer, like you have to make it like, oh no, his life is completely ruined now, and instead of just being like, oh, okay, it seemed like, yeah, he was in a bad place for a while, but he's coming back.
I mean, they kind of like touch on it like very briefly, where the new boyfriend says something like, oh, like, I'm a smart guy and one day you'll be like towing my car because you're an idiot, or you know, like,
yeah.
Like they almost touch on this idea, but because they've not committed to Bobby feeling like, oh, he's trapped in like a regular job, like he, you know, like it seemed like maybe they were going to go down that route. It just, I don't know, yeah, they just feel underdeveloped. I guess is the bit easy way to describe them.
Yeah, and I never really got a sense of like who the new boyfriend was supposed to be. Like, okay, so are you like an asshole character who like is just obsessed with this girl, or like, oh, do you actually care about her? Like, because sometimes it seems like, oh, he's kind of like scummy, and then sometimes it seems like, oh, yeah, he's kind of like just awkward and boring.
It made it impossible to tell at the end when he comes in to like hug her and comfort her if we should be like happy about that as the audience, like, oh, are we relieved that he's a good guy? Well, no, because he was like, I never got a good sense of him. Like, it's not like they sort of like made me like him, but then give me a reason to think, oh, maybe we can't trust him, and then oh, it's a relief at the end that he turns out to be good. Honestly, they never gave me enough to even like him in the first place. So I don't know. Just, yeah. Anyway, let's get into the questions of the thing. What was your scene of the movie? And if it's anything other than the riot, I'll be shocked. But on you go.
I mean, the riot is really good, but actually, I was thinking the first kill I thought was pretty fun. The waitress, and again, yeah, I like when, you know, you can do like fun things that like haven't really seen before, and like I liked, you know, like freezing her face onto the you know, freezer door, and then not being able to use her phone, and then yeah, like, I mean, I would say this kind of all counts as like one scene. I guess it kind of like changes locations and stuff when she's in the parking lot, but yeah, I thought it was
fine. Yeah, let me go.
Yeah. But I thought it was like a nice enough capper to, yeah, when he gets when she, you know, run over and like cut in half and stuff. I guess not run over, but like she's on the dumpster and stuff and gets ran into it. So I'll actually go with that. And I do like the ride scene in the beginning, but like it's kind of interesting to have this horrific moment and this gory moment that actually doesn't have anything to do with the killer. Like, it's what informs the killer, but it's not like the horror from the, you know.
I just liked the riot scene because it was kind of bad and funny, and that, sure. You know, it was that kind of like crazy energy of like, you know what, if it's going to be this stupidly funny, then I'll be into it. And obviously the rest of the movie never quite lived up to that, but just the absurdity of it was making me laugh. So I have to pick that. Although I will say I really like the buzzsaw kill if I'm picking a kill.
That was fun too, yeah.
To pick one, but yeah. All right, MVP of the movie, and good luck with this because not. I mean, there's not a single character that really stands out in any way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe Scuba, like of the main characters, he was the most memorable. I don't know if it's just because he actually had like an interesting name, but I don't know. I guess the character is fine. Yeah, this is definitely a tough one because none of the characters really stand out. I do like John Carver as like a, slasher villain. But then if I'm thinking of him as like the sheriff, like I don't care about the sheriff as much.
Yeah. I'm not particularly into Patrick Dempsey as an actor, even, never mind the character. I don't know who to pick for this. Yeah. Oh, actually, this reminds me, because I'm looking at the cast again. See when they revealed, when he's explaining that he had found a new love of his life, and he was like, "Oh, I was with Gina Gerson's character, and she was going to leave her husband, and we were going to be spending this Thanksgiving together, and now I can." They showed, when he was saying this, they revealed that she was pregnant. They showed like a sonogram.
Forgot about that.
Right? And not to be a dick here, but Gina Gerson's in like her mid-50s. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
That's a good point.
Like,
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
No. I don't know what age the characters are supposed to be, but like, I happen to know roughly what her age is, and like, no. It's just not physically possible.
I mean, like, even your late 30s, I think that's considered like a geriatric.
Yeah,
pregnancy.
you're pushing it. Yeah, I mean, I think some people can give birth in their 40s. Like, it does happen, but once you're in your mid-50s, I don't think it's. I mean, I'll tell you what. I'll Google oldest woman to give birth.
I mean, it's gonna be like some outlier, like.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. Apparently, 73 is like the.
Right.
But
that's like one
record.
of those like crazy weird things that probably shouldn't have happened. Yeah,
very strange. Apparently, pregnancy over the age of 50 has become more possible due to advances in assisted reproductive technology, in particular egg donation. Here's the thing though. If you're having an affair, I feel like you're not going out of your way to try and get pregnant.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call bullshit on like that as an explanation. Like, they're going to a fertility clinic and they're doing stuff to conceive. No. They banged without a condom and this happened.
For sure.
Anyway. Yeah, obviously, yes. Getting pregnant after 50s is less likely. It's not impossible. It can happen, but I did side-eye that and be like, that's a weird thing to put in there. Because it felt like it was just like, oh, we have to make the killer look, he's got more of a reason. Like, oh, you took my baby from me as well, like, kind of thing. And I'm like, you didn't need it. Like, it was sort of, like, it didn't make it a better motivation. It just made it even more ridiculous.
I agree.
Anywho, MVP... the cat.
Okay. Sure.
Well, honestly, I have no reason to pick any of the humans. None of them do anything for me in this. There's not a single one where I went, oh, you stand out, or you're more likable, or you're adding a lot to the drama of the characters or anything. Like, they're not particularly bad either, which is weird. They're just kind of in this middle ground where they're not really enhancing anything. Anyway, all right, Tim, what are you rating Thanksgiving?
So I mean, we had a lot of negative things to say, but I'm still gonna give it a fairly positive score. I think I'm gonna go with a 6, which, to me it's kind of like, all right, this was okay or fine. It doesn't hit, like quite good or obviously like great territory or anything. But I think what we have here is a pretty fun holiday themed slasher, which, I do think I'm going to be a little bit more lenient, because when something is holiday based, like, I can maybe forgive things more if it's like, okay, you're invoking the tropes of the season and stuff, and it's, is it something fun that would be fun to put on around this time of year? And I think it works for that. it has enough good kills and like a nice look for its slasher villain that I thought it made a pretty fun enough watch. It's just a shame that it didn't go above and beyond that. And again, like it's simple things that you can do. Like it's not like other movies you watch where it's just like, oh well, this is screwed from the start. There's really like no saving it. The story is bad, the actors are bad, blah blah. This, it's like, all right, well, you just needed like a bit of a tighter script, more interesting characters. I mean, maybe that's a little harder to do than just to say it, I guess, but
arguably less plot, honestly.
For sure, yeah.
Just make it simpler. I think would have went a long way. Like I think I was thinking a 6 for a lot of the movie as I was watching it, and this is pretty decent. I think the ending and the reveal and like how it wrapped up kind of left me a little bit sour. So I'm going to say the kills make it put it over the line. So I'm going to say 5.5.
Okay,
but it's watchable, and I don't know if I'll revisit it anytime soon. But like I don't think I'd be mad at least putting this on while I'm doing something else as like background slasher noise.
Well, I mean, it's probably a little less, important for you because obviously, you're not really celebrating Thanksgiving.
Oh no,
but
never.
Yeah. But I mean, again, when it gets to this time of year, like, be it any like holiday, like, New Year's Eve or Christmas or whatever, whenever you're a horror fan, you have the horror movies that you like to watch around that time of season, and there's not that many other Thanksgiving movies. So I mean, I guess by default it makes it a bit more watchable around this time, just because you don't have as many choices. But it could be worse. I mean, I would take this over the Thanksgiving movies at any point.
I don't know if I'm ready to say that necessarily, but
okay.
Hey, look, gobble gobble, mother effer. I mean, there's some charm to be had. They're not good, but arguably there's more memorable things in them. No? Okay. Well, anyway, that's our thoughts on Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, you can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Every month there's an exclusive episode for our patrons or YouTube members if you'd rather do it that way. And there's also even more streams, which you get at the $5 and up tier. So if that sounds like fun, plus there's bonuses for the other movie shows, go check out those, and go check out the other movie shows. If you listen to the audio feed of this and you have no idea there's a sci-fi movie podcast or like a regular movie podcast called Collector's Cut and the Atomic Cinema Experiment, then go check out those. You can find info on them on the Mail Fuzz Movies YouTube page, and then they all have audio feeds though if you want to get them in podcast apps and whatnot. But that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We do appreciate it. And next week begins Christmas season, believe it or not. So we'll be having Christmas episodes for a few weeks on the build up to the day. So thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and we will see you next time.